guys, what is up? Welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, it's your girl Fayy Lenee back with another video. And if you are not new, you already know what it is. So thank you so much for coming back. For today's video, I have part 3 of my Best of Beauty series. And in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you guys my top 10 eyeshadow palettes for 2018. Now this was a little bit difficult to narrow down just because I have so many eyeshadow palettes in my collection, but I just went through and picked out the top 10 that I constantly was going back for in 2018, and those are the ones that I'm going to be sharing with you guys in today's video. I have a mixture of high-end and drugstore, and all of the products that I mentioned will be listed and linked for you guys down below. So before we get started, if you are not part of my fam, definitely be sure to go ahead and subscribe down below. I would love to have you as part of my fam here on YouTube. If you enjoy this video, be sure to let me know by giving it a big thumbs up, and let's go ahead and get into the palettes. So to start, I'm going to talk about all of my favorite drugstore palettes from 2018. I have 4 palettes to mention to you guys, and all of them are actually collaborations with brands, influencers collaborating with brands, with the exception of one of them. And the very first one that I want to mention is the Shayla x Colorpop Perception eyeshadow palette. This was such a great collaboration in my opinion. This is what the palette looks like. I feel like she did a really great job of having a balance of warm tone shades or like everyday shades that you can wear, but then also mixing in a couple of colors. So basically you have like colors on this side and then your neutrals on this side. And this is such a great everyday palette. I also think it's a great palette if you are someone that is a beginner, just because it does have your everyday shades, some great transition shades. But if you want to kind of dabble in color or try out something different, you have a couple of different more bold shades on the other side of the palette as well. And just to quickly show you guys a couple of swatches so that you can see a little bit of the quality of the eyeshadow palette. We have this kind of pinky toned shimmer. We have a gold shimmer, a matte kind of reddish brown transition shade, and then this kind of like bluish purple duochrome shade. So as you can see, these shadows are super pigmented. The shimmers are super buttery. They swatch beautifully. They apply to the eye beautifully. She definitely killed it with this eyeshadow palette. So if you have not picked this one up, it is definitely one that I recommend. So the next palette that I have to share with you guys is from BH Cosmetics, and it is the BH Cosmetics times It's My Ray Ray palette. This one is more of like a full face palette, so it folds out like this. And at the top you have a mirror, and then you also have eyeshadows. I believe 21 eyeshadows. Yes, 21 eyeshadows. And then you have some face powders down here. So you have some colors to contour with, some beautiful highlighters, and then also a setting powder over here. The thing that I really love about this particular palette is I feel like she definitely made this palette with brown girls in mind, because these contour colors down here are beautiful contour shades for women of color. She has this super deep one over here, which is usually you don't find in palettes like this, structured like this, a super deep contour shade. But she has a super deep contour shade and then a more kind of medium deep contour shade right here. This is the color that I use. I actually used it to contour my face today, and I also use the highlight on my face as well, this highlighter, as well as 2 of the shades from up here on my eyelids for the look, as well as the inner corner highlight. So this is a great just all around palette. If you're someone that is looking for something that you can just buy one thing and have several things all in one, this is great for that, just because like I said, you have your face powders, you have eye colors, you have highlights, you have contours, you have setting powders, like under eye setting powders. You pretty much have everything that you need in this one palette. And it's super, super, super affordable because it is from BH Cosmetics. So this was another one that definitely hit it out of the park for 2018. And then the next palette that I want to share with you is the Morphe x Jaclyn Hill eyeshadow palette. Now this one I'm sure does not come as any surprise to you guys. I'm sure most of you guys that are watching this video have heard about it. I believe I also did a full review on this eyeshadow palette, and I have featured it several other times on my channel. So I won't spend too much time talking about this particular palette. But I will say, if you are looking for an eyeshadow palette that pretty much just gives you everything you could possibly need in one eyeshadow palette, I would recommend this one to you. As you can see, you have a beautiful variety of neutrals, of highlights, of transition shades, lots of beautiful matte transition shades. You have some colorful shades down here. You have some shades to deepen up the look over here. This palette pretty much gives you everything that you need, and all of the shades in here are brown girl friendly. Now I will say these lighter shades up here, you may not, if you're someone that likes to highlight your brow bone, I'm not someone that is into that. I just use concealer whenever I shape my brows as my highlight. But if you are someone that likes to highlight your brow bone, if you are of a deeper complexion, these may be a little bit too light for you. But what I do personally is I actually mix these shades with this bronzy shade or with these pinkier shades. And that kind of tones it down a little bit and makes it more complementary to my skin tone. But overall, I think she did a really great job with this eyeshadow palette. The pigmentation is there, the blendability is there. It's just a beautiful overall great eyeshadow palette for the price. And of course, as most of you guys probably already know, but you can get Morphe from Ulta now, so they are a little bit more accessible. If you are interested in picking up this palette, you can actually find it at your local Ulta store, or you can order it online. And then lastly, for drugstore eyeshadow palettes, I have the Profusion Sienna's 21 shade eyeshadow palette. So this palette actually comes with a brush. I don't have the brush in here, but the brush is actually pretty good. It's a dual-ended brush that has a blending shade or a blending side and also a flat shader brush side to apply shadows to the lid. But this is actually a brand that I have seen around quite a bit, but I never purchased anything from them. You can find this brand at Target, and I literally would always just walk right past them. And then I had the opportunity to receive a couple of products from them in PR. So I had the chance to try out some of their eyeshadow palettes as well as some of the other products that they offer in their brand. And honestly, I have been sleeping on this brand. If you have been walking past Profusion in Target, I recommend that you stop the next time that you're in there and check out some of the palettes that they have and just some of the products they have in general, because their products are really, really great quality, and this one is one of my favorites. If you are familiar with my channel or if you watch my videos, I'm sure you can look at this palette and tell why it is one of my favorites. All of these beautiful warm tone shades. This is a great everyday eyeshadow palette if you are someone that likes warm tone shades. Even this look that I have on my eyes right now could have easily been created with this eyeshadow palette. And yeah, I think this is just a great overall eyeshadow palette. I love the shades in here. I love that there's tons of matte transition shades, and their matte shadows blend beautifully. So smooth, so just like, just beautiful. And again, it's affordable, so definitely had to give this one a mention. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and move into high-end eyeshadow palettes, and the very first one that I want to mention is the Urban Decay Born to Run eyeshadow palette. This is a palette that launched in 2018, and honestly, I think this is probably the best eyeshadow palette that they have come out with, even more so than like their Naked series. I feel like this is the best in my opinion. First of all, the packaging of this is super durable. It has a magnetic closure, which is really nice. And the packaging overall is just really, like, the whole idea behind the Born to Run collection was basically supposed to be that it's a collection that you can take with you when you're on the go. And so I think they definitely, with the packaging of this, made this something that is very much travel friendly because it is so durable. And then when you open it up on the inside, you have a nice big great quality mirror, and then you also have all of your eyeshadows. And just look at these shades. So beautiful. And of course, you're still getting the same quality eyeshadows that you're used to getting in the other Urban Decay palettes. In my opinion, I feel like the shadows in this palette are a little bit better quality. The shimmers are a little bit more pigmented, a little bit brighter, and the mattes, as always, are just beautiful, pigmented, smooth, blend into each other beautifully. And again, this is another all-around everyday eyeshadow palette that you can take from day to night. I feel like that's kind of the theme with all of the palettes that I'm showing you guys, is that they are all palettes that I could go to one palette, create an entire look, and I could transition it from a daytime to a nighttime look. And I feel like that's what you want in an eyeshadow palette. If you're gonna spend the money on a palette with several different shades, I feel like you want it to be something that you can really get a lot of use out of, create several different looks with, and transition those looks from daytime to nighttime looks. So they did a great job creating this eyeshadow palette. I think it's beautiful, and definitely if you're looking for a high-end eyeshadow palette and you're willing to spend a couple extra coins, this is a really, really good buy. Next, I have two Anastacio eyeshadow palettes, and the first one is Soft Glam, and then I also have the Norvina eyeshadow palette. Now, the Norvina palette actually launched in 2018. I can't remember if Soft Glam launched in 2018 or if it launched towards the end of 2017, but either way, this palette has been one that I have been using like crazy. Again, you see the theme here, warm tones. This is such a beautiful eyeshadow palette. I mean, look at these tones. Look at these tones. And then you guys already know that you're getting bomb quality with Anastacio eyeshadow palettes. If you've never tried out an Anastacio palette, if I had to pick, and I do have all of her eyeshadow palettes, so if I had to pick one, it would be this one. Just because, again, when you look at the shades, this is a perfect palette for a beginner, perfect palette for every day. And again, you have shades that you can transition from day to night because you have your lighter, more neutral shades, and then you have a couple of shades that you can deepen up the look and make it more nighttime appropriate. So this one right here is bomb, honestly. Like I said, out of all of the Anastacio eyeshadow palettes, this one is my favorite. And then I also had to throw in the Norvina palette as well, just because I think she really did a great job with this eyeshadow palette. This one is going to be more, well, it depends on what your preference is. For me personally, this would not be an everyday eyeshadow palette, but I definitely reach for this palette whenever I'm wanting a specific look, or whenever I'm wanting a shimmer that's really going to pop on my lid. I reach for this palette. The entire top row is shimmers. Some of them are like really intense pressed like pigments, and then other ones are just your typical shimmers, and then the entire bottom row is matte shadows. So of course with these mattes, you do have a couple of different cooler toned matte shades that you wouldn't necessarily use on an everyday basis, but I do love the pops of color because every now and then you may want to play a little bit with color, so it's good to have that in your collection. And honestly, I feel like between the two of these eyeshadow palettes, you literally have everything that you would need to create pretty much any look, in my opinion. You could do a smoky look, you could do a light, natural, everyday look. Like, these two together complement each other very, very, very well. So the next palette that I have is the Dose of Colors times Desi X Katie Frankation eyeshadow palette. This was a palette that launched towards the second half of 2018, but I still had to mention it in this video because it was one of my favorites, one of my favorite collaboration launches. Honestly, this whole collection was bomb, from the lippies to the highlighter to the palette. Everything was on point, and I think they did a really great job of coming out with a highlighter this time around, because this was actually their second collaboration with Dose of Colors, and I think they did a really great job of coming out with a highlighter that was more complementary to deeper skin tones this time, because it's more of like a bronzy highlight. And this eyeshadow palette is also very complementary, in my opinion, to all skin tones. Like, anybody can use this eyeshadow palette. Anybody. The shimmers in here are gorgeous. I absolutely love this shade right here. It's like a, it's a shimmer, but it's kind of like a pressed glitter. It's not really a glitter. I'm not really sure how to describe it. This is a shade that is so unique and so different. It's almost like a sheer champagne shimmer shade, if that makes sense. Like, I could apply this color to my lid right now and you would still be able to see the shadow underneath, but it would just create like a shimmery version of this eyeshadow, if that makes sense. But all of the other shimmers in this eyeshadow palette are also equally beautiful, and all of the mattes in here are also stunning. Great everyday shades, again, that can be transitioned into night looks or shades that you would use for a nighttime look. And yeah, this is one that I feel like I definitely need to reach for more often. I feel like I don't reach for it as much just because it's just so beautiful and I'm trying to like keep it intact, but I definitely need to reach for this more because the shadows in this palette are gorgeous. Okay, so the last two palettes that I have to share with you guys are actually face palettes. They're not eyeshadow palettes, but I didn't want to just throw in another two eyeshadow palettes that I wasn't completely in love with. So I decided to have the last 2 palettes be face palettes that I was just obsessed with in 2018. The first one is a drugstore one by Pixi, and this is the Pixi Sweet Glow palette that was done in collaboration with Dulce Candy. She is a creator here on YouTube, and she actually created a couple of different palettes with them, but this is the one that stood out to me the most. And the thing that I really love about this palette is that the shades in here are complementary to so many different skin tones. I think she did a really great job of making sure that this palette was inclusive of a lot of different complexions. And you have some highlight shades, you have some blush shades slash blush toppers because they are shimmers. And then down here you have another blush-ish, highlight-ish type shade, as well as a deep bronzer slash highlighter depending on your skin tone. So really quick, let me just show you guys a couple of swatches. This is the reason why this particular palette became one of my absolute favorites, because when I received this, I was kind of like, oh, I'm probably not gonna like this. But then when I tried it out and I saw how pigmented the shades in this palette were, I was like blown away. So here is one of the highlight shades. Here is one of the blush shades. And then here is that deep bronzer shade that I mentioned to you guys. Look at how gorgeous those swatch, how beautiful they are. And they are just as beautiful and just as pigmented on the skin. If you are someone that is on a budget, or if you just want to save a couple coins, this right here is something that you need in your life. And then last but not least, to close out this video, I had to mention my Sephora blush palettes. These palettes right here, I have been sleeping on for a hot minute. I have mentioned them on my channel in several favorites videos and just in several other videos in general. My friend Andrea actually put me onto these. She has been using this one right here, the Spice Market palette. She's been using this for forever. I've seen her mention it on her channel for forever, and I just always overlooked it and just never really gave it a second glance. And then I finally decided to pick it up during one of the Sephora sales towards the second half of the year. And girl, I fell in love with it so much that I went back and got the lighter one. The lighter one is more like blush shades, if that makes sense, at least for my skin tone. There's not really much like contouring that I would do with this necessarily. These are just more blush shades, and then you have a highlighter shade down here. And then the darker one looks like this. Still has some blush shades in there, but you have this deeper shade over here, which for me would be used as like a bronzing or contouring shade. So these are going to be a little bit pricier than drugstore, but I wouldn't necessarily put them in the high-end category. They're kind of like that in-between, similar to like Beauty Bakery or Juvia's Place or even Morphe sometimes with some of their prices. I would put these palettes in like the Sephora collection in general in that in-between section as far as price range. But if there's anything that you pick up from the Sephora collection, there's a lot of good things that I've slowly been discovering from their collection. But if you've never purchased from them and you want to know like what your first purchase should be, these palettes right here, girl, listen. Thank me later. Just thank me later. Trust me, you will love these. These are bomb. Just trust me. Alright guys, so that is going to bring us to the end of my top 10 favorite eyeshadow palettes, must-have eyeshadow palettes for 2018. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video and found it helpful. Again, every single palette that I mentioned in this video will be listed and linked for you guys down below in the description. I always do that, or at least I try my best to, because I know that makes it so much more easier for you guys to know the exact names of the products that I mentioned and where you can find them with the links. So I will have all of that information for you guys down below in the description. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know by giving it a big thumbs up, and also let me know down below in the description what your favorite eyeshadow palettes are currently, or what your favorite eyeshadow palettes were for 2018. What palettes you feel like I should pick up, palettes you think I would love or that I should try out, or even palettes that you're interested in that you would like me to pick up and review on my channel. Leave those for me down below in the description or in the comment section. And yeah, that is all that I have for you guys for today's video. So thank you so much again for watching, and I'll see you very soon in my next one.